How we're going to give it to is the grandson of Stan Weber. He's going to toss Oakland. Started off, I don't know, as a graduate, as a quality control guy, graduate assistant type guy. Now and then he coached the offensive line in the Super Bowl last year, okay, against Tampa. So he's progressed right into the Super Bowl. Does a hell of a job. He's going to talk to us, and because they throw the ball, he's going to talk to us about pass protection technique and things. Aaron Kromer. Sure.
I'd like to first thank Bob for inviting me. I obviously don't feel like I'm worthy of being up here. I should be in those seats listening to the gurus talk like I did many years in the past. If you look and see on the docket, the guys that are here today, you're listening to 70 years of National Football League experience. 70 years of National Football League experience. Trust me, after 2 years, I understand the difference. And the difference comes, in 2 years, I've coached 44 football games. And with that comes a lot of experience in a short period of time, and it allows you the exposure to a lot more things that you can see and learn and understand how to handle. So with that experience that you're seeing today, if you don't get something out of today, or a couple things out of today, you're not paying attention. But 70 years of experience is right there, and obviously I am killing that scale with my 2 years of experience. But I'm humbled to be up here. Like I said, excited to be up here, thrilled to be in front of these guys who I hope I can say one thing. If I say one thing that Jim McNally likes, I will be excited, because I have learned from him since the day that I started coaching tight ends. I was a GA at Miami. I'd come down, I'd see the Bengals practice, he'd let me in. Guys like him and guys like these guys up front that allow you to come and watch their practice or spend time with you is an unbelievable thing that I have now discovered, because time is so precious in our league. The amount of studies and the amount of things that we do and have to take care of, and practices, and we practice all year round, and we're always doing something. And these guys have spent time with me. McNally has, Wiley has, John Matsko with the Rams when he was with the Saints. I used to drive up 11 hours up to Wisconsin from Oxford here. We'd get in a car and we'd drive all night to stay 3 days and make sure we could see a couple days of training camp and watch tape all night, not sleep for those 5 days, and then come back home and get as much out of it as you could. And you talk about Paul Alexander, who came and learned under McNally and got with the Bengals, and I'd go down and just watch him. Mike Pope was the tight end coach down there at the time, and I'd just sit there and study and get drills and write things down. And you think about that, what a great advantage it is for everyone in this room to be able to come here at one time and hear us all, and hear it all, and get to it. I think it's outstanding. The other thing, obviously Bowman has helped me in the past, and I don't want to leave him out, because when I was in Chicago, he would allow me to go up, and when Wiles was up there, and him and Bowman would always allow me to get up there and see some things. So that obviously is great to have this opportunity. The next thing I want to talk about is real quick, and I want to spend a little time before I get into true X's and O football. I want to talk about somewhat how to learn. I have a teaching degree from Miami University. I have a master's in school administration, and part of the thing that I think that makes a good coach is to be a good teacher. And I want to teach you a little bit about how to learn, and with that, I'll tell you a quick second about my background. But I went to Miami because it was a cradle of coaches, and it was where Sid Gilman and Weeb Eubank and Paul Brown and Bo Schembechler and all these great coaches has come. I didn't care if I got to play it down, if I got to whatever. I wanted to go there because I wanted to be a football coach. But I got to play for Tim Rose, and then Randy Walker comes in, and he hired me as a GA. And during that time, he had come from North Carolina, where he had always had a 1,000-yard rusher. Every year he coached at North Carolina, he had a 1,000-yard rusher. When he came to Miami in Oxford, and he came back to his alma mater, he was 9 out of 10 years he had a 1,000-yard rusher. So I always knew that we were going to be able to rush the ball. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm going to talk about pass protection today, and most of the time we talk about running here. But that is a key component in the history of where I've come from, is we were always going to rush the football. Now, my transition to the NFL was one that with Bill Callahan hiring me and allowing me an opportunity to get with him. And the one thing I want to say about that is this: when you are working a job, wherever you are, you're at Penn High School, you're at Miami University, you're at Ohio State, every day, you are interviewing. I got the job with the Oakland Raiders because I worked with a guy named Sean Payton at Miami of Ohio. And Sean Payton went on to the Eagles, wherever, Giants, and now he's with Dallas. And the reason I got the job with Bill Callahan and John Gruden, who I had never met in my life, was because Sean Payton said I could do it. So what I'm telling you, and if you don't learn anything else today, is understand that every day of your life, when you walk into that office, and now as you see on TV, and you watch ESPN, and in your off time, you are interviewing. You are interviewing for your next job by the people you are working with. You never know when your GA is going to hire you. Trust me, you never know when your GA will hire you. So understand, treat people right, and also understand that you're on an interview each week and each day. But my transition to the NFL, and maybe the reason I'm telling you these things, and the reason I want to talk about this, is because I think I could have got this ahead of time if I'd have paid closer attention. I'd have got this, I'd have learned this and been able to do these things in college, and I would have got ahead. And the first thing is my job when I first got to the Raiders was I was going to draw every play we were going to run out of every formation and every personnel and every set and every motion, and I was going to put this on this computer. It was going to take me all darn night and all day. So that in itself taught me to rehearse plays in my mind, on paper, in drawings, and rehearse what you're doing, because with that you're going to continue to think about, you're going to continue to go over it and over it. What could be my problem here? What should I coach this guy now? Should I change my coaching point by what I just thought through in my thought process of drawing that play? The next thing is, if you can get in, if you're the tight end coach and the tight ends go over to the pass receiving meeting, and you can get into the O-line meeting, go in the O-line meeting and find out what the O-line coach is coaching that right guard, because I'm telling you, when the right tight end is making that same block, it's going to be very similar, and you can learn a few coaching points there. Whenever you can get in with, work your individual time. I got to do that with Bill. The backside blocking responsibility, as I think Tony Wise said it earlier, that he learned, Jim Coletto said it earlier, he learned that the backside in the National Football League is possibly more important than the play side, because you see a lot of the plays cutting back with the ability of people to run and take angles and understand the defensive angles. So I was in charge at the Oakland was the backside blocking. And I was happy about that, because I had learned that earlier from these guys, that, hey, get the backside blocked. Understand that backside safety's got to be blocked, or your backside techniques has to be tied in. And that was really a key that helped me progress. The other thing was game day experience. Take out of game day and make notes when it's over, right after it's over. Instead of going to drink beer right away, take a half an hour. Take an hour and write down what you learned during that game that day. Maybe it's one thing. Maybe it takes a second. Maybe it takes 30 seconds. But look at your sheets that you wrote down during the game and your notes that you were telling guys, and go back and write it down and put it in a book or put it in your computer, or somehow chronicle that information, because tomorrow you'll forget it. Because tomorrow you got to grade the tape, you got to look at this, you got to do that, you got to start the blitzes, you got to do everything else. So take time, take a minute, and learn something that you learned during the game and write it down. The next thing is communicating. The thing you find out quickly is communicating, and the differences in the different levels that you're coaching, whether it's 7th grade all the way up to the National Football League, is your communication skills are key. The words that you use, the words you choose, and how a kid is going to understand that word, because you might be saying it, but he has no idea what that means. In your mind, it means something. So communicate and learn to communicate on a daily basis with these guys to give yourself a chance. I'm going to move a little quicker here, but I think this is important if you can learn from this. The game weeks can help you there, I think, in your development, because when you get into a West Coast style offense, I guess is what we kind of call ours and kind of don't call it, the volume of preparation is unbelievable. It's uncanny, the amount of protections and passes, and I mean the amount of passes that we go into a game. We use 20% of the passes that we have in our system throughout this season, and we threw the ball 760 times, and we only used 20% of what we had, so you can imagine the volume that we have. So the volume is unbelievable. The overage of plays that we have, we cannot come close to calling the amount of runs that we have in our game plan. So I think, though, with that, if you do it in your spring practice or your off season or your training camp or whatever opportunity you have when it's not game week, is to have that overage of plays, coach those plays, have kids understand what you're talking about, and in case you need those during the season, in case you want to move on to that play, it's going to be a good play for you. Now you can go back and you can use that play, even though you haven't run it a ton for the last 2-3 weeks, you can go back to it because you taught it in the off season, you taught it in training camp. So have an overage of plays. The other thing is, don't waste a play. Is a big philosophy of ours. So that means, hey, if you're going to run that weak side ISO play and that free safety's down and you don't have a way to block that free safety on the weak side ISO, well, don't run that play. You can't run that play. Don't waste a play just to say, well, we'll bang it up in there and hope that free safety doesn't make the play. Don't waste any plays because there's not enough in the game to waste. The other thing is have contingencies in that situation. What is your contingency? Are you going to short motion the receiver? Are you going to adjust a blocking scheme up front? Everybody move over one guy because it's a free safety down or whatever it is, but have contingencies, whether you're going to audible, those kind of things. The other thing that helped me learn was being forced to install. And you live in your world of 5 guys up front, and it's a wonderful world to live in, don't get me wrong, but understand that there's more going on, and you are responsible for that, not the receiver coach, not the tight end coach, not the quarterback coach. The line coach has to handle the blocking of an entire running play, the protection of the entire play. The line coach is responsible. The only guy who gets charged for the sacks is the line coach. It could be the running back whiff. The tight end didn't know who to block. The quarterback was supposed to be hot. But the line coach is the one that gets blamed. So make sure that when you present a run, look at the quarterback. Rich, if we have a free safety down, motion your receiver. If we have a free safety down, make a call to get the line to move one guy or center. Be responsible. Or we don't want to run it, audible. Whatever you have to do, but understand that the presentation of that run when you put it in is key, that everybody on the offense understands, not just the lineman. And the other thing is, when you are presenting, how are you going to get your 7th grader, your high school, your college, your pro player to understand what you're talking about and keep them interested? Our problem is we can't keep them interested. You run that weak side zone ice play, and you show that 5 times a year. Every time you go to install that play again and you show the same thing over, they lose interest. They don't care anymore. And your guys might say, I don't care about what everything else is happening. I don't know what your situation is, but understand that some way in this age of technology and this age of things popping at you quickly, find a way to entice them to learn. Find a way to help them. One little point that you can make that everybody all of a sudden pays attention. That all of a sudden click, they're all in it, and they're all hearing it. I bet earlier you all heard me say every day you're interviewing because you all probably want a better job than you have right now. It's human nature. But so I bet earlier when I said that everybody heard that. And so understand that there's some ways and some things that can help you get that across in presentation. And then the other thing that can stretch an old line coach out of the box and out of his mindset is this. You can be stretched by understanding the force patterns of a wide receiver when you're in presentation of these plays. We have going back to our formations and plays, we have an overage of formations and shifts and motions and ways to run plays. Well, guess what? That adds another 50 contingencies you better have on that one single play that you have. So it becomes difficult, but if you can make simple rules and for the receivers or splits, keep things constant, keep them changed. If we have this formation, you always be in a 5 to 6 yard split, and always block the first DB off the ball. Always Give them some sort of always rule with one exception. Don't try to take them through each front and show them how. Say, hey, listen, you always do this unless this happens. And give them one clue or one way that you can help them understand it. But if you're presenting, and I urge you, if you don't do this now, to take time and think about it. Take time and think about this. Present your running play in your mind. If you're not responsible at your school or your high school, take your play and understand why the receiver should be at a 6-yard split instead of an 8. Understand his force pattern and what is blocking, and why it should change if it's not correct right now. Understand why you're not making a 30-yard gain when you're making 5 because the safety's coming down and making the play, and you're sitting there saying receiver coach isn't getting it done. Well, guess whose responsibility it is? The line coach. The line coach's responsibility to handle that. So it can stretch you, but understand that can help you. Understand your formations, your shifts, and matchups inside, obviously, and on the perimeter. If you're in a situation where a receiver's going to have to block a safety that he can't block, then you shouldn't be running that play. So understand your matchups that you have. The next thing I want to talk about is just what I do game week. Just to maybe it'll help you one thing that can help you plan for a game. Maybe you don't do it this way, maybe you don't like my way, but this is the way I go about it, maybe it can help. The first thing I do is I start and end the week with blitz pickup. I make sure that the blitzes are picked up, and in my situation, we use a lot of 3 wides, or whether it be 3 wides, 2 back, or 3 wides with a tight end and 1 back, or whether it be 4. We don't use much 4 wides, but we could use it. And we have some 2 back sets, so in regular sets. So understand that you better have your blitzes picked up. And the way I do it is I make sure that I have every blitz from the season. And I have every blitz that they've had the entire season. And if it's first 4 games, I have every blitz that they blitzed in the season before. So I have them all in a reel, or 2 reels, or 3 reels, whatever it takes. And I study every one of those blitzes to make sure that I have coached everything that they've done in the past. Because there's a tendency that they'll repeat it. Don't go back to your 3-game breakdown and think that you have all their blitzes. Because they're going to go back to their fifth game ago, the first game of the season if it's a 6th game or whatever, and use that blitz thinking that you didn't look at it. So go back and make sure you handle that. Make sure you plan it, number 1. Here's what I'm going to do here's how I'm handling it. This is the way I'm doing it. I drew it on a piece of paper. I gave it to the guy. He understands it. I talked about it in the meeting. Then go out and walk through it. And make sure the running back and the quarterback and the receivers all understand where you're going with that. Walk through it and have everyone there. The next thing you got to do is obviously practice it. And if you can, in the off season and training camp and spring practice, whatever you have the defense put that blitz in. Say, hey guys, I got a great blitz for you. You want to get to some teams? This is a son of a pup for us. Come look at this blitz. Give them the blitz and say, hey, use this thing. And now you have a chance to practice it in practice. Have your head coach talk to your head coach. They like line coaches. Say, hey, listen, have the defense put this in. It's going to help us in the long run. It might be good for them. They might like it. And also, it can also help you because you get to practice against it in the offseason, in the preseason, ready to get going for that next season. The next thing I do is really talk about the audibles that we're going to go to. And some people believe in audibles and some people don't. I personally do, and part of the reason I do is because Rich Gannon can handle the audible system. If I had a guy that was in his first year or second year or something, maybe I wouldn't use an audible system as much. But I think Rich can see it, he understands it, and he knows where his protections are going, so we use an audible system, and it's wonderful for us. The next thing is adjustments. And I say this again, I write all positions. Understand whether it's a hot by the inside receiver. Guess what? If that tight end doesn't know he's hot in a certain protection and he runs his route and he's not looking and the quarterback gets hit, guess whose fault it is? The line must suck. All right? But it's the tight end that didn't look back on his quick or his hot. So make sure everybody knows where you're hot and make sure that you know that the tight end knows he's hot. And the next thing is sacks, because you're always going to be responsible regardless of fault. So understand that goes back to my last point, that the sacks are going to be on you, and you need to be ready to help everybody out on how to avoid those. And then problems by formation, schemes, or tendencies. Obviously, a lot of times you don't want to use your slide protection in a 2x2 set, right, Jim? And so you want to make sure that the coordinator and you are on the same page with your protection. So go and see him and make sure that he's not going to call any plays out of formations that you don't want that protection out of. So get the pass list and understand where you're going. The next thing is, if you're going to when you're playing in your run game, understand your own tendencies. Do your own self-scout. Understand what you have done, what they're looking at on tape. What I do is I take our tapes and I'll say, okay, what are they doing? I'll have a cut up of us, whether it be short yardage or goal line or first down runs, and watch it and say, okay, if they're planning for me right now, I'm seeing what they're planning for me. They see that, hey, every time on first down, they're going to run the weak side ISO play. I guess I'm going to get some sort of stunt or some sort of overload to stop that play on first down. So now I have to adjust and have a tendency breaker there in that situation. But if you just look at the breakdown sheets of your self-scout, it doesn't always come, and it's not as easy to see. Maybe some guys are smart enough to they've been doing it longer, but I can't see it that way. So I have to get the tape out and say, here's all my first down runs. This is what I've done. This is how they're going to try to stop me. We better change. The next thing is, but stick with what you do, but find a way to eliminate that fourth guy strong or eliminate a problem that you could have. But stick with what you do, because that's obviously what you're good at, or you wouldn't be doing it. Do what you do. The next thing is formation shifts to help you, like I just said, and marry up with the passing game. You can't get in one set. We can't be in regular personnel to run the ball and then all of a sudden get in three wides to throw the ball. It doesn't make any sense. It won't marry up. So make sure that you get that married up, and then always add specials if you can. Get one or two guys. The Pittsburgh Steelers are excellent at specials, and these guys are excellent at specials. Get a guy that can run a special. Don't run a reverse or a flip play with somebody that can't do it, that isn't good at it. Find your best guy and use him over and over to run specials. And obviously I got to work my protections, whether it be in the base against their fronts. I want to know every front. I'm going to have every front on the drawings, and I'm going to draw it up so the guys know exactly where we're going, even though it's redundant and it's with the same, possibly 6 of them are the same as last week. I'm going to draw it up and make sure that everybody's on the same page with base and nickel protections. Then when we get to practice now, we're going to script and plan and obviously, get our plays that we want to practice and practice. We practice 110 plays a day. And the way we do that, is we walk through for an hour, okay? 45 minutes to an hour every day. On our work days, we walk through. And that's a team walkthrough, not an O-line walkthrough. That's a team walkthrough. And that allows me to say, okay, I want these runs against these fronts. I want these protections against these blitzes. I want these blitzes with these audibles. And I want then the hots or whatever you're using, and that's in your system, against these blitzes. And I'm going to tell the quarterback exactly, and I'm going to tell everybody up front exactly where we're going. All right, guys, the next 10 plays, we're going to use blitzes. And I want everybody to adjust the center, understand you're going to adjust these, your protection to pick this blitz up. So for the next 10 plays, be ready to do that. I'm going to move on. All right, we're going to go through runs. Now, I don't have any situations where we can't run this ball. I just want to make sure that we're good against all these fronts. We're going to run these 10 plays. So tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it, but spend the time to do it. The other thing is this. We're not afraid to walk through late in the week and practice late in the week. Fridays and Saturdays, obviously Saturday's the day before the game, we're still going to have a 45-minute walkthrough. I don't care if they're going to bitch, they're going to moan, they're going to say, this is the day before the game, I got to get my legs back. And I say, get your ass in your stance and let's go get another 50 minutes of walkthrough. Let's talk, let's do our short yardage, let's do our goal line again, let's do our red zone, let's do a special play out of special formation we haven't had in the past. But let's walk through one more time. And we'll walk through every day all the way up to the game, and that really, I think, has helped us. And that coincides with the next point. And as a lot of coaches say, the hay's in the barn. We're good. And in college, Thursday practice, you're done. Hay's in the barn. Let's go. We're good to go play. And you still got a couple days before the game. And I say that the hay is never in the barn, and I'm going to coach them up till the time it starts. And I understand that you start coaching them right there prior to the game. Yeah, they're going to say, I don't need to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But if you let them leave that locker room before the game, before they go out for a walkthrough, and you haven't given them 3-4 tips. Hey, today now, don't forget dit, and dit. And if you remember those 3 things today, we'll be all right. You got to give them something. You got to coach them up into that point. And I have guys that are veterans. veterans, obviously, in this league, and they still want to hear a couple points. The next thing is I want to make this point to you, and this point was made to me loud and clear when I first started with Oakland, is they will do what you tell them to do, and they will be good at what you practice. And what you practice and is on tape is what you're teaching. Whether you think it's what you're teaching or not, it is what you're teaching. When that backside guard turns on his combo to the backside linebacker, you haven't taught it enough that he better work on that angle to that linebacker. And I have it all the time, and I understand that. When I see it one time on tape, not twice, when I see it one time, I say, obviously, I am not teaching that right, or I have not taught that enough because they're doing it incorrectly. So somewhere they're missing the point. So just understand that what's on tape is what you're teaching. So the other thing in practice there that I missed is choose wisely what you practice, because you don't have much time. Now I have a fair amount of individual time because Callahan being an O-line coach, you end up getting a decent amount of time when he becomes the head coach, because he wants to make sure you're doing all the things that he would have done and those kind of things. So it really works out, and John Gruden always gave Bill time, so it kind of works out, coincides there. Well, I'll get during the season a good 30 minutes of individual during the day, so it ends up working out pretty good. And during training camp, I get 45 plus about 20 or 25 minutes of pass protection, so I get a ton of individual that way. The next thing is philosophy. When you're talking about the structure of a play, understanding the structure, and this goes back to being sound and not wasting a play. So understand when you're going to run a play, we're not going to just book this guy. We're not going to just understand that with this guy, we got to run through this guy, which I used to do in college all the time. I'd say, we'll just let the running back run through him, because we could at times. But at this, in most levels, in most situations, you can't do that. So be sound and understand that everybody has to know their role. And the next thing is, obviously, with no wasted plays, have your contingencies and your adjustments, and that's a little repeat earlier, but have alternate calls to get to, but have ways where when you watch the tape the next day, you're not standing there looking at it and saying, I wish we would have got out of that play, because that's your fault. That's my fault. If I would have got out of that, if I'd have had a way to get out of that play, it's too late now. So have a contingency if you're going to have a problem with the play, or have a way for your line to pick it up. There's obviously different ways to skin a cat there. You can have ways and perimeter adjustments or audibles or alternate calls that are going to allow you to handle that. The next thing is something that I wish I would have done more in college, and I want to bring this up. But obviously, you always talk about no turnovers, and we always did too. We had a running back up at Miami, Ohio once that had 265. No, I'm sorry. It was 2 seasons, and so it must have been around. It was 700. It was 700 rushes with no fumbles, and then he fumbled one time, and he picked it up himself, and we didn't lose the ball, but we still took him out. But this goes back to our turnover situation. Get involved with positions that affect you. So get involved with the running back. Understand that he better have 4 points of pressure, and if he doesn't have it, talk to him about it. Don't piss off the running back coach. It's not worth it. But when you get a chance, talk to the running back and say, listen, pal, if you want us, we're going to tote this ball, and we'll block for you, and we'll give you the ball as many times as you want. But understand, hey, squeeze that thing up for me, will you? You squeeze it up, we'll keep calling that play. We love it. The next thing is wide receivers. Help them, because the receiver coach is not going to coach them to block unless you make them or you do it yourself. So get the receivers to block. That's easier said than done. The next thing is quarterback. Make sure your quarterback understands. Every week I give the quarterback, I do it myself. I say, okay, hey, here, and Mark Trestman does an unbelievable job coaching Rich Gannon. Don't get me wrong. He is phenomenal at getting this passing game in and understanding the shifts and motions, and having Rich and working with Rich Gannon and Marcus Tuiasosopo, the backup, and the whole offense and the receivers and the splits, and it's uncanny what he gets done with our passing game. So I try to take a little bit of load off and say, hey, listen, here's what we want in the run game. Here's exactly what we want. If we have the lead draw on and we have a certain situation, I want to get out of this, we can adjust it with this. Or, hey, if you can make a call when the free safety comes down, that'll really help us out. And I have it listed on a page, and I give it to the quarterback coach to then say, yeah, I agree with that, and he gives it to Rich. So do that on your own. Do it. It's your job. Let him understand the runs and how we're going to get in and out of plays. Now, this is something Chris Turner did, my assistant. He looked and said, okay, how do turnovers affect the games? And in the National Football League in 2002, this is how they affected games. This is how they won or lost. You can see in the NFL, in the left column here, this is how many turnovers you had. If you were up 6, okay, there was only one game, it was 1-0. If you were up 1 turnover, you won 72% of the time. If you were -1 to the team you were playing, you won 28% of the time. So look at the drastic difference in the National Football League. That's one season study there. The drastic difference between winning the turnover ratio and losing the turnover ratio. So just be heads up that that also can affect your career and your job. Personnel-wise, there's guys, everybody has their own idea of what linemen should look like. Now, my opinion, linemen or Raider linemen should be the largest humans you've ever seen in your entire life. That's what I would like. I would like the biggest people in America with the longest arms and the strongest people in America to play for me. That's what I want. Now, not everybody wants that because you have to sometimes sacrifice possible foot quickness at times or whatever. But that's the kind of guy I want, and I'll talk about that as we go. I want tackles to move to guard. I'll take big tackles in college and I'll move them down to guard because they're used to playing in space, so they have some movement, but they're also large and strong and long arms. So I like to get those guys and play them down at guard. The next thing I do is I want everybody to learn to play center, unless you're just a tackle you're just a tackle. That's all you can be. But every guard has to play center in our system, and that's very important. The next thing is, hopefully I can help you here with this. When you're developing, everybody I call that's younger, I mean, it's hard to be younger than me, but every guy that I know that I've worked with that's not gotten lucky having the opportunity that I've had, is I say, okay, here's what we do. Learn this way. Take the best running team in your conference or in your league or wherever and make cut-ups and get their running game and find out why it's successful. Find out what they're doing different from you, or possibly learn a new play and cut it up and find out what's going on. Find your best passing team in the conference or in the country or whatever tapes you have. You can't tell me anymore that you don't get tapes, because nowadays you trade. By the end of the season, you're getting the whole darn season in college. So you have those tapes. Just go over to the defense and get them, or whatever you have to do. Study the best old linemen. The first thing I learned from Jim McNally was him studying Anthony Munoz. I was sitting in the back of the room, and I was, wait a minute, you're studying the linemen, you're not teaching them exactly. And as you keep studying them, you start to learn more about how to coach the other guys, because some guys are just good at things, and you can learn how to coach the other guys. That was the most, I remember sitting in the back going, wow, I never thought of that. And and it's such a simple concept, but study the best linemen and find out, take notes of what you see. When you quit learning about things, whether it be linemen or studying new things, these guys have seen so many games and coached so many linemen, and you see them every day looking and studying and trying to find out more things about football. It's amazing to me. But keep doing that. At clinics, make this point to yourself. Now, write this down for me. Write down things that you don't understand that I'm telling you, because someday you'll figure it out. It doesn't make sense to you right now as you're sitting there for whatever reason, but you'll figure it out someday, and you'll be glad you wrote it down. Because what happens and this is a teaching point I'm trying to make here, what happens is you write down things that you already know, because you can remember it after I say it. So you write it down, but you already know it a lot of the times, and that's why it was simple to write down. Write down some things that don't make any frickin' sense to you. And someday you'll ask somebody, or you'll go back to those notes and say, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand what he's saying now. Or come and ask the person that said it. But write it down. And then make sure that you're watching tapes and making up drills. The thing that's another big thing that I learned is the best way to everybody's always calling and saying, well, give me a new drill. I say, hey, I learned this myself, because I used to say the same thing to Callahan. I say, hey, how about a drill? Give me another drill for this or this or this. He said, watch the tape. Watch the tape and do a drill on what happened in the game. Do a bounce blitzing linebacker drill. Have the linebacker blitz on the guard, punch him in the mouth, and then bounce around the other side. Who'd have thought of that? You do, because you watch the tape and you figure out, hey, I better do a drill on that because that shit's going to happen in a game. So find drills off of watching tape. And I talked a little about run, but I want to talk about why I'm talking about protection. I said it a little bit earlier, and I don't want to harp, but we threw the ball more than any team in the history of the National Football League as far as yardage, and that's a testament to Bill Callahan and Mark Trestman. I was lucky to be on that ride, but they did a heck of a job, an unbelievable job of managing Rich Gannon and Jerry Rice and Tim Brown and Charlie Garner and the amount of catches that they had. And we had balance. Some people say we didn't have balance, but we threw the ball 60 times versus Pittsburgh and won the game, and we ran the ball 60 times versus Kansas City and won a game. So don't tell us we didn't have balance. We did do that in those two separate games, and that's the only time in history that's been done. And we gave up 36 sacks, and to some of you that might sound like a lot, but when you throw the ball 764 times, 36 sacks isn't bad, and really 25 of them were related to the offensive line getting beat up front. But our completion rate was 67%, so we were getting the ball completed of 491 out of 733. And I just say to you that 174 of the snaps were 5-man scat protections with blitzes coming from anywhere or stunts coming from anywhere. That's a lot of scat protection there, 21% of your offense being scat, and then only 15% was play action, which you normally have a ton more play action, obviously in a normal down situation. But so it made it tough to adjust and protect to that point. So that's one of the points. And if you can see what Mark did with, Trestman did with the moving the ball around, and I know this isn't a line point, but just bear with me for a minute. Look at what the amount of guys that caught balls. Rice had 106, Brown had 94, Jerry Porter caught 65, Charlie Garner caught 108 passes out of the backfield. And you talk about that takes protection adjustments to be able to get your running back out of the backfield and not have to pick up blitzers or linebackers or whatever, or chip or help more. You'd like them to help more, but to get him the ball, we had to get him out. And then the running backs altogether had 153 catches. That's a ton of catches now. That's a ton of offense when you talk about 1,386 yards. And my point here is only that find a way to get the running back the ball. And how you can do that is because your running back is obviously one of your best players, or you wouldn't have him carrying the ball in the run game. So get him the football in the passing game. Now, your involvement with that is find a way to get him out. Find a way to adjust your protections to get your running back out. Because a lot of times he gets caught, and they keep him in, and they find ways to keep him in, and you got to find ways to get him back out. When they start to battle you got to get them back and get your back out of the backfield. So find ways there that you can get him out. My point there was that Charlie had more catches than anybody else in our receiving corps. And that leads me to our pass protection talk that I came here to talk about. And let me just give you a couple things, and I'm going to just hurry through this because it's, and I only say I don't want to make light of it. I don't want to make light of any technique that we use in our pass protection, but I think a lot of guys have heard or understand this from the past. But if you hear it one more time, maybe there's one thing that you'll understand and you'll hear that you forgot about. So just let me go through it real quick with you, that when we're in pass protection set, when we're talking about a set for a lineman in pass protection, some of the techniques that we want to use and employ are going to be this. We are going to have our head tilted, as you can see, slightly in and back. And the reason for that is to allow us balance. Everything that I talk about in pass protection, it keeps the core and your core stability and your balance in check. As soon as any type of your upper body gets outside of that core or that center of gravity, then you are going to be in a poor situation to recover from any kind of movement in a protection scheme. So understand that you want to have your head slightly tilted inside and back. Your shoulders have to remain square. And the first thing you see is a guy wanting to turn to the defender and opening his shoulders. And I say that as much footwork as you can use, whether you use a pipe or I choose to use a line. Anywhere, I have boxes all over my practice area where, and so it doesn't do you anything other than just going out there and getting them painted. Get a 4-yard or 5-yard box painted all over and just checker your whole area so you got places to work. I mean, I hear old Woody Hayes stories where he'd say split up in bunches, you know, and spread out. And I say, hey, go stand on a tee, and everybody knows where to go. It's easy. You can save yourself some breath. So get yourself some lines and work. Everything you do, work on lines so they can see, and you can see how far they've stepped, how far they didn't step, whether they took the correct footwork or not. But use lines when you're practicing. But remain square. Keep your back obviously bowed and keep your knees bent. You got to have good Z in your knees. If you don't bend your knees, you can't pass protect. So go back to what coaches have said earlier today and work knee bending drills. When I was in college football, that's all I talked about in the off season. That's all I talked about in warm up and prior to practice. Is I did walking lunges or the Crowther walk, and I did knee bending. I just stood there all day and I just make the guys bend. And after practice was over, when you know how you feel after team period went forever, and you were in some, you're out some, you're in. I made them all stand around in a circle, and I'd say down, and they just all go down. I'd say down, and they all go down. And I'm not here to talk about knee bending today, but I just want to make that emphasis that I really worked on knee bending post practice all the time, because like they were saying earlier, that it's very important. The other thing is your feet, and have a slight stagger. And you know, I got one guy that's 6'8", I got one guy 6'5", you might have a guy that's 5'11". But your stagger is obviously going to be a little bit less by your height, I think, in my opinion. If you're going to be 6'8", you're going to have a little more stagger than a guy that's 6 foot. So I can't tell you an exact stagger, but I say that don't get too much of a stagger. Don't allow him to get his foot, don't allow him to get his toe really much past his heel. His opposite is post leg heel, so on your stagger. And then your kick foot obviously is your outside foot, just so you understand where I'm coming from. Get your hands, and carrying your hands at eye level is key. And the first thing you have to study, I think, that I didn't study enough before, was have your hands up and keep them up. Don't bring them back to punch. When you transition from one guy to the next, keep them up high and transition with high hands. Guys are going to want to bring them back down so they can go and get another kill shot on a guy. And I say don't do that. I say keep your hands up, and when you go to transition, keep them up and get another quick strike in a striking motion. But do not drop your hands at any time. And then protection in movements. When you're setting your initial movement, everything's got to use footwork and keep your posture. You're angling, keep a proper angle and study the angle of a defender. Obviously setting on Warren Sapp's going to be different than setting on whoever, another big defensive lineman, a huge slower guy that you want to set on. So understand that the quicker or the slower guy, that you're going to have a different angle for your set. Don't bail out. Don't turn one way or the other and bail out thinking that you're going to get a good get movement up the field. The thing I learned from Paul Alexander when I was coaching at Miami was that, hey, the quarterbacks, unless you have a 6'5", 6'6" quarterback, those guards better set on the line of scrimmage. You're in a 5-step drop situation, your guards have to set on the line of scrimmage. If they're off the line of scrimmage, guess what? That 6'5" defensive tackle is going to be in your lap. And the quarterback can't see. He's got to look through angles, he's got to look through holes, he's got to find his way through. It's too hard, so set your guards on the line of scrimmage. Don't bail out. You have to slide laterally, and you saw some drills earlier for that. Don't spread your feet too wide, and always claim ground, okay? Ability to slide. And I want to get through some of these. Don't get overextended. No false stepping. Obviously, holding your weight inside. And you look at this, and you say, why is this simple stuff written down? Because if you don't, you forget to coach it. So write down everything you want to coach. Write down every point you think of and put it in your composite there. Put it in your Pass Pro composite. Just another thing. I just learned another thing today. He called it a closed foot instead of a whatever foot you used to call it. And just throw that in there, and it might help you someday. But he's going to use a closed foot. I want to always close. Anytime I go somewhere and I kick or I slide, I want to close that back foot, because if I don't, I'll be overextended. I'll have to lunge then on my next step to reach a defender or to move in another direction. Obviously, you want to have your anchor. Your anchor is big. Your anchor is big because, once again, getting to the quarterbacks and thinking about quarterbacks, is you got to be able to set down and be physical in your pass protection. And one of the things I'm going to talk about today in the stunts, as I have on tape and on a reel, is two things. One, physical response to things that happen during a pass protection play, and two, stunts, and how physical you can be on your stunts are key in pass protection situations. The other thing is, don't pivot. You're talking about benching a guy. If you get mired in and he gets in your body and you're stuck on him, that you got to make sure that you bench him. It's the only time you bench. You don't want to bench when you punch, but you want to bench him and get him off. You want to give ground grudgingly, going back. If I say sloop when I'm talking later, it's going to be because I'm talking about your back foot goes too far, your closed foot goes too far, close to your other foot, and it's in the air too long. And then reset, obviously, is to on any kind of movement that you have. As we talk about the approach, and I'm going to flash through this, but as you talk about the approach, we really want to work. It's always predicated when you make a pass set, and when you're teaching a pass set, tell them exactly what you're talking about as far as where's the distance from the defender and you. So if I'm teaching a pass set, I have to make sure that I understand that the defender is splitting. His inside foot is splitting my crotch. His inside foot is on my outside foot. His inside foot is 1 foot outside of my outside foot. And understand, when you're teaching your pass protection, that's got to be a point of emphasis so he knows what the hell you're talking about. Because if you don't, it'll be too confusing for him, and he won't understand, and you'll talk forever, and he won't get anything out of it. But make sure your shoulders are back, and this is kind of reiteration of what I talked about before. Okay, talking about contact and finish, and I'll talk more about that on the tape. Let's talk about some common faults, and I urge you to write these down in your book when you are coaching it, not mine, but yours. Write them down and understand common faults so you can coach against it, so you can fight it. You have to know your enemy, and your enemy in this situation is your faults. If you're late off the ball, there's nothing worse in pass protection than he says, set hut, and now you move, and it's too late. There's nothing worse in pass protection than being late off the ball. I urge you to do this when you're watching your tape, and this is something that I learned as we went. Because I didn't do this because I kind of thought I could see it when I was going normal speed, but you can't. When you're watching every play, and these guys know it, they've been doing it for 100 years, when you're watching your play, every play that you do, practice, whatever, if you're working a half-line drill, practice, games, slow it down in the beginning and make sure everybody's hand releases the ground at the same time. Everybody's. Not one guy, not two guys. All five have to be, their tenseness has to stop, has to move. Everybody moves at once. And make sure you do that. And if you're having a problem with that, the one thing I learned in the 7-man sled is that if you use a 7-man sled, you can really get that timed up. And I wasn't a big proponent of the 7-man sled because I didn't really know what to do with it in today's day and age with the zone plays and all the things that were happening. But the one thing you can really use a 7-man sled for is to time up your tight ends and your offensive line and everybody together coming off at once, because it is evident when you do that. So if you get time, do that. The other thing is, obviously, you can have improper footwork. You can have late hands or tentative hands. You don't know where they're going to go. And I urge you to say that when I'm going to pass protect, I know what my target is. Because Coach told me when that guy's foot is splitting the difference, that when he's splitting the difference in a 5-step set, I'm going to put my outside hand, I'm going to put it right on the tip of the outside number, and I'm going to put my inside hand on the tip of the inside number. Because that's what I do. So have a landmark and don't allow them to be tentative because they don't know. Because they don't know exactly what their landmark is with their hands. And then punching from the shoulders instead of the elbows. And what I say there is, and the thing I use the Crowther Cruncher every day, okay, and Callahan invented it, and so we've had it for a couple years. Him and the Crowther company put it together. But the Cruncher is the 5-padded pass protection machine. And the reason I use it is because I don't have to coach the defense. It is the defense, and it doesn't, and it's stationary, and I don't have to coach them, because the worst thing about pass protection is coaching the defense to do what you want, and where to rush, and where to step, and all that bullshit. So what I do is I use the cruncher, and I say, okay, I want to use a short set, and I want to work exactly, I want to get my hands and my feet exactly where I want them, and on the landmark, and get my footwork exactly what I want. I tape it, and I watch it, and I make sure that they're getting it done. So punch that. And then the other thing, when I'm working the punches on the cruncher, is I really work to not bend the elbows and punch the thing. I really work to just strike from 3/4 to 7/8 and bring all the strike from the shoulders, and not allow him to coil up and then uncoil his arms, because it takes too long and it won't happen. So everything I do is I punch from extended 3/4 extension. Just talking about some other things there: overstriding, hopping, lack of movement or foot speed. Obviously, insufficient anchor would mean that you're standing up, you're not bending your knees enough, and those sort of things. So due to time, I'm going to just keep moving here. But keep in mind and keep a list of things that you think are a problem in pass protection. Okay? Any questions on that? The next thing, real quick, before I get on this tape, because I'm going to show you something at guard. And the first thing I have on my tape is a one-on-one pass protection drill, like everybody does, one-on-one versus the defense. But what I have is I've cut out a couple sets, and I've cut out a couple things that I want to teach today. And one of them is a short set by the guard. Okay, and the short set by the guard is used in two situations. One, it is used in a 3-step protection when you're in a man scheme, obviously, or you could be in a slide scheme as well. So you're going to use a short set, and a short set to me is an aggressive jump set, whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to take my feet, and I'm going to move toward the defender. So I'm in pass protection, but I'm going to move toward the defender in an aggressive fashion. But I have to get in a pass protection position. So with that then, from my stance, I'm going to move toward the defender, being aggressive, and I'm going to have a striking point with my hands and an exact target. Okay? This set can be used in a three-step situation, or in a 5-step situation, in a drop-back pass, 5-step, when you need to change up your set. Because if you set all day on a 45 and a 5-step drop when you throw the ball 60 times against Pittsburgh, you're going to have a long day, because that guy's going to get it timed up, and they're going to be running all over the place on you. So you have to change up your set, and the short set is where you can do that. It's a controlled, aggressive set, okay? It'll play. The thing that it'll also do is it'll help you against bull rushers. So you get a big, strong power rush that you're going to get, and your guard isn't big enough to handle it. Most guards aren't. You get the Washingtons of the world and the guys that you can't stop because they're too big, the Sam Adams. You better get on them before they get moving. So my short set in a 5-step drop, I'm going to get my hand on the target, and I'm going to stop him and stymie him prior to him being able to get any momentum, and that really can be beneficial. They won't be able to anticipate that set or your hand placement in that short area. They won't. If you're good at it, you will stymie them at the line. Now, I'm not talking about just setting and waiting for them. I'm talking about aggressively setting on a 3 technique, or sometimes on a tight 5, but for a tackle. It's going to increase your focus on the snap. Think about it. If you know that you got to move forward to pass protect, and you better have some focus and some big eyes on that target, or you're going to whiff. Okay? You're not going to be able to make that block. So your concentration level is so much more and so much greater, I feel like, in a short set situation, that is also going to help you. It's obviously going to allow you to crank the defender and get him stopped before he gets going. It's going to force you to get out of your stance. Okay, it'll force you to get out of your stance and really get moving on the snap, and be anticipation of the snap, and you'll play with big eyes. A couple things there. The other things, it's going to focus and make you take exactly where you're going to go there. It's going to take you exactly where you're going to go. There is no hesitation. The defense isn't triggering where you're setting or how you're going to set exactly where you think pre-snap you're going to set. It can be used in one-on-one. I say this, when you're in one-on-one pass protection drills, have them change up and try new things. Don't use the same set over and over so they win every time. Have them try new sets. Have them try something new that could help them in a game, and if they get beat, talk about how they can help themselves from getting beat, but don't say it's a bad block. Move on. Help them. But allow them to do things to change up to help themselves in games. It's very effective versus the TE stunt. Being a passing, quote, team that we were this year, throwing the ball so much, we got stunted 108 times. And that's a ton of stunts now that you have to pick up. So it'll really help you on the TE and on the penetrator there in those situations. And then obviously the blocker's got to understand, and you have to make sure that the guard understands to tell the tackle in a 5-step situation, hey, listen, if I'm going to short set this down, or when you're at the ball, then make a call to help the tackle understand that he's short setting so he doesn't, so he can set accordingly as well. There's a couple notes here just on setting either whether inside or outside, and I'll get to that more on the tape. But I think it's important that you differentiate in your mind and in your teaching the difference between short setting on an inside defender, on a head-up defender, and an outside defender. And then that gets me to some additional coaching points here. If the defender is too loose, you have to decide whether a short set is going to be, in your mind, you're going to the ball saying, hey, I'm going to short set here. But if he's too wide, use it with discretion by your game plan or by the defender you're going to play against and say, hey, listen, I can short set this guy even though he's wide. Or if it's someone that's special, then you don't. And remember, always have big eyes and have strength. It's like the run game, whereas have that strength on your second step. When you step, the strength of your second step and the quickness and the power you bring with your second step is the same fashion as your run game set, okay? So make sure that you understand that you really bring that back foot strong and quick and understand where the ball is being thrown from, obviously the defender's alignment, and then how much speed and quickness you need. Any questions on those? All right, I'd like to get to some tape here. Okay, the idea of this tape is, initially, is to show you some sets that I'm talking about and how they're done in a one-on-one setting. The first thing I have is I really like how Barry Sims vertical sets. Okay, so here's a tackle. Here's our left tackle, possibly the most important position in pass protection because he's protecting technically the blind side of a right-handed quarterback. And the reason I'm showing this is I want you to see something. And I'm going to slow it down, and it's going to take me a minute here. I want you to see the first step of Barry Sims and then the second step, okay, and see what he did different from a lot of people's vertical set. What he did was he takes a step out and back to start his movement. Watch his first step. He steps out and back, and then his second step goes back the line. So what we're allowing him to do is you are widening your landmark, your alignment by the first step, but you're sinking on a vertical on your second step. So that's giving him more space to work, but also staying square and not kick sliding out to the man. So we're kicking, we have somewhat of a kick, we're losing some ground, and now we have we're losing ground with the inside foot on our vertical set. The other thing that he's deploying in this situation is he is using a flash set. So he's flashing Reagan Upshaw here. He's flashing because he likes to use the swat and swim outside on a speed move. So he flashed him the arm to fake and entice the swim move. He flashes it and he brings it back then to obviously not get grabbed. The other thing that I like that Barry does is he has good control with his inside hand for the most part. He has good control and he uses his inside hand up and under the pad. He has it up and under, so when the arm bar by the defender's inside hand comes to him, that Barry's inside hand is up and under to still have leverage versus the arm bar. So all the wax on and wax off is eliminated because he is already inside the defender's arm bar. So let's watch that one more time full speed. See how he gains some width. He gains some width now. You can see where he started, the inside of the hash, and he got himself another foot of width there with the second step.
Does he always do that
Yes.
Sometimes, or there's like
Does he always?
that left foot sideways and up like Gary Zimmerman.
As long as he has a wide rush, yes, he always does. An off-the-body rush. Okay, here it is again. Just another show of it. He gets some width. He kind of sloops the inside foot a little bit too much here. He's trying to close a little more ground. The reason I put this on is to show you that inside hand under the arm bar again. Okay, now he misses this one. He misses this one. He gets back inside, but then he can release. He releases because he's not leaning. He's keeping his center of gravity. He releases. He's not leaning. And he can come back on a redirect with his hands inside. Now, I spent the 12 years or so, whatever, in college, and every time I had a speed to an arm bar like this, is the offensive guy wanted to lean. He wanted to lean, he wanted to get his helmet in there, he wanted to drive, and then the inside move like this would always beat him. And so you got to fight to get them to use their hands, and the only way you can do it is to continue to drill, to use their hands and keep the defender off of them. If you don't do anything else in pass protection, drill their hands until they're bleeding. Do something until they can't lift their arms. I don't care what it is, but get extension and keep drilling it. Okay, here's another situation now where he's actually somewhat sliding to the defender in more of a three-step situation. And we'll move on from that one. Okay? Now he's trying to move the foot with some width. He doesn't get the same amount, but you can still see how he's losing ground, how he gets his feet parallel to his inside foot, sometimes getting past the outside foot, and then getting back to a kick situation. So he's losing ground with his inside foot on this vertical on the backside. He's losing ground, and then he's gaining back his balance and control off the backside with squareness. The other thing that you see is he's not turning in until the defender really turns to him. He's staying as square as he can on his set. You can see the initial part of his set here. He's staying as square until the defender starts to take the edge, and then he turns when the defender turns. He once again got a strike on the near point here underneath the arm bar. You got to change that up now with somewhat of a snatch on the inside arm, and not always take that set though, because you are vulnerable at times inside. Okay, here's a look of a speed to power rush. So now the defender's on an angle. He can go either up the field on a speed, or he can come in with some power. So he's coming with a little speed and coming to power. So you can see, and the reason I have this on here is to show you that Barry, when the defender turns, he turns. When the defender turns, he turns. When the defender makes contact, he butt and presses. Here's your bench press that I talked about earlier. He butts him because of the speed, the bull rush or the power rush that he's using has to be countered by a bench, by a butt, press, bench, and sit. Now look at the ability that he had to adjust on the inside move, because when he benched, and this is important, this is the most important part right here, because when he benched, he anchored and then sat and pulled his shoulders out of the block. Very important part, because otherwise there is no way he can recover on the inside rip or spin move. Okay, here's a little short set now. Now we're in a three-step pass pro situation, and now look at him get his hands on a short set. Now he's not bringing his hands quite as quick because he's anticipating a swipe by DeLawrence Grant here. He's anticipating a swipe by his outside arm, so he holds his hands and gets a strike there late. But look at the hand placement that he has, because he's looking at the target. The other thing I bring up now, as I say look at the target, is don't be afraid to give the play away. Don't be afraid to tell your lineman that before the ball is snapped, that they look right at the frickin' number they're going to punch. Look at it. Pierce a hole with your eyes through that target. It's the only way you have a chance. You're going to do the same thing when it's a zone play. You're going to do the same thing when you're manning him up in a run scheme. So look at the guy. Understand where your target is. Don't try to see him out of your periph and then wonder why you missed the target. So he's got his short set, so he's protecting his inside. You see his head tilt inside. You can see he kicks and he closes. Look at his close by his back foot. Look how he kicks and he closes, and he kicks and he closes. He gets his hands on the target, he presses it. Now this is a 3-step drop, and we have a defender rushing out at 8 yards. So we're still in good shape here in this situation. Watch him get the quick punch. Strike. Strike. Nice job running the arc there at the end. Always teach him to finish by running the arc here at the end. Run it. And I'd like him to run it even more. Stay in contact, run the guy past the quarterback all the way around the other side. Okay, here's Lincoln now. Now Lincoln's a little bit different body structure and type, so Lincoln's going to have a little bit different set. You want to teach them the same way, but you can't always do that by what they can do. You can't make them do something they flat can't until you can train them to do it. So here, you can see his vertical. He's slooping the inside foot more than you'd like. His inside foot's really coming close to his outside foot, but that allows him to get some depth and some width on his vertical set. And you can see he's saving the inside hand because Trace Armstrong likes to come inside on him a lot. So when he turns, when he's going to turn on his vertical like this, he saves his inside hand and he makes sure that he closes the inside window with his inside snatch hand of the pad. But you can see his right hand, these are two big men now, rushing, pass rushing together. Okay, let's watch another one. Okay, here's more of a 45 set. So now he's going to set him a little tighter to the line of scrimmage with the 45 set as a right tackle. And now what I want to see here in this look is he allows the defender, once again he anticipates some sort of swipe or speed move by a guy that's significantly smaller than him. So he's anticipating some sort of speed rush. So he's feeling and he's saving his hands. So, but by saving his hands, he misses with his punch. So when the defender gets his inside hand, the defender gets an inside hand placement on his chest, he uses what we call a trap. And he traps both arms down of the defender. Well, all the defender's strength and power are coming from his feet, generated from the ground and coming through his hands. And when he does this, he's off balance. So you trap that arm bar off and you trap it down and then retrace and refit on the defender. You can drop him to the ground more times than not. So that's just a little show, just to show you the trap there on a pass rush, that the guy gets inside of you and he's really driving you. And I say if that happens to a guard, you don't want to use it much. I'll show you one on this tape, but try not to use it because you're trying to keep him on the line. All right, here's a short set by our left guard. Look at this short set now. The only thing I say that he didn't bring his back foot great. He didn't really bring his back foot. He kind of oversteps, but that's what this guy kind of does. So, but his hand placement is good. Look at his hand placement. He's getting them both. He's trying to get the tip of the number with the left hand. He really gets his inside hand in there strong and controlling the defender. He controls the defender at the line of scrimmage. How many times do you see a pass rush when you get a bull rush like this, a strong power rush, and you can keep a guy on the line? The only reason he did is because he set him on the line of scrimmage. Okay, here's another look at it. Take a look at this. Right guard here, look at the inside hand strength he has here. Now he's keeping his head tilt inside some. He's kicking and closing here, but he's getting his inside hand right down the middle because he focused on his target. Look at his target right here. Look at his inside hand on the target. Look at the outside snatch of the pad just to make sure that he doesn't get an upfield swim move, because if he's going to bring his inside hand so strongly and the defender takes that inside shoulder away, he obviously could be beat off the edge. So what he's doing is he's saving the outside hand with a snatch on the pad, so if he does take that shoulder pad away when he punches it and strikes it aggressively, that he's still in control of the defender. Okay, here's another short set. And we'd like him to gain a little more ground on this set. But he really does a good job. I show you for his hands. Watch his hands. He really slows and takes, and the defender's trying to take his shoulder pads away and soften to get around, but he does a nice job of coming back and refitting on this one. Look at the near point refit here. See the near point here. He gets a strike. He sets it inside. He could have closed his back foot a little bit more, but he feels that inside move. So he feels the inside move. He doesn't set. He redirects back inside, but then he gets a near point press and widens the defender on his rush. I thought that was excellent. Here's another short set inside with the redirect. And so you got to continue to keep working on this short set and then redirect, because that's what's going to happen. That's your biggest fault. That's your biggest problem you could have, is a guy spikes on you, comes inside. So short set his butt, short set him, and now be ready to redirect back inside. Keep extension, keep working that. Look at the near point press there. He gets a near point press, so he really continues to drive and take control, and Rich can step up and has a shot. Okay, let's watch Wisniewski. Watch Steve's inside hand. He had great balance and body control, and his hand strength was excellent because he always placed it, he always had control of the defender by his hands and his targets. Watch his inside hand get on the pad and control and be ready to redirect. Look what happens when you can get your hands inside a defender and you're not too over-aggressive with your pad. Okay, I just wanted to show you this one trap. So we miss on the short set. The defender comes lower than we expected. We miss with the left hand and the right hand. You're trying to get the pad. He's trying to short set. He's just learning in this situation. But he tries to get it and he misses. So now at the last resort, we'd have to trap him again. So there's our trap again that we were talking about earlier. Okay, here's another short set I wanted to show you. And I keep showing you these because I think it can help your passing game. Look at the right hand and the pad and the strike that we get here. There's Mo Collins here on Rod Coleman, who led defensive tackles in blitzes this year in the league. Did a nice job, and he's really good with turning his shoulders. So Mo's got to make sure on Rod that he gets his hand on the outside pad, because otherwise, if he just takes that inside pad punch, then he's going to be in trouble because Rod can take that shoulder away. So he saves his inside hand with the snatch, and he really gets his hand on the tip of the outside number. Keeps his head inside. Look at his head relationship here. Let's watch it slow. Look at his head relationship inside out, but his right hand is right on the tip of the outside number. A great aggressive set. Now the only thing I would say is I'd like to have him lock up after he short sets him. Short set him, now slide your feet over and lock him up. He gets a kill shot and then retraces and refits on him. But you can see that if there's any problems elsewhere with the protection, then that would squeeze Gannon in the pocket. Okay, here's a short set with the redirect. So you can see the first step goes, he pauses, holds the post on the inside, he holds the post and he redirects back inside and then refits with his hand. So let's watch that one more time. He gets the short set, he misses with his hand on the helmet, but he gets the redirect. Now look at the extension that he gets when he recoils and he refits. Understand this, that you have to give a little ground when you have a spin or any kind of double move situation. He moved inside. We have to be firm on an inside move, but when you get to the second move, the double move, we have to give a little bit of ground on our retrace to be able to get a refit with our hands. Not as strong as we want it to be, but on a double move, you have no choice. Now I put this one on so you can see the head tilt inside and how he saved his hands here. He saved his hands, he saved them. Now I wouldn't want his elbow to break as much as it's breaking. It's really he's got his hand into his chest and his elbow in or wide. I don't like that as much, but it's just to show you his head tilt. He slides to the defender, he closes with the back foot, he's got a head tilt, so he took away the inside move. I thought this was beautiful. Darrell Russell. All right, now just a couple more short sets here. Look at this short set. He gets a little high with the right hand, but he gets the tip there, he gets the pad, and I'm just showing you that strike that we're getting. Look how he leads with that pad. And this is a good defensive tackle pass rusher here. I wish he could bring that back foot just a little more. Good finish. Okay, here's a center set. And I just wanted to show you on a center set the offhand punch. So, every time you go one-on-one, they jump on that snap side, right? They always jump on the snap side, give themselves an advantage and give themselves a look. And I wanted to show you the offhand punch and how in this situation we have a strong center, Barrett Robbins, so he can go ahead and be pretty physical with this guy. But his offhand is hitting first. His offhand is coming across to getting position on the pad. He settles and then gets his right hand up after the snap on the opposite number or far number. Look at the inside hand. He's still kept his position and his grasp and his punch of his inside hand. Look at the offhand punch. Offhand punch. This is about as impossible as you can get in a one-on-one situation. But I really like the offhand punch. He controlled the defender there in that situation. long enough to get his snap hand on it. Okay, here's another offhand punch. He gets the offhand punch, and it saves him from the spike move across his body. It saves him from the move. He gets his left hand up and in, albeit it is in his neck, but he does get a piece of the guy. He gets the set, and he gets his right foot then. He gets his right hand, right foot, and he's ready to redirect inside. There's nothing worse than having one-on-one with the center, but if you can really work on some specific aspect, it can really help you. I would settle, and I'll show you that right here. You can see here that Adam True, he likes to lose a little ground, not being as physical inside, but more of a, moves his feet a little quicker, let's say, or in his mind, you know, he moves quicker, you have a quicker center. He's going to move, and he's going to lose a little ground on that settle set first, and if he didn't get a spike nose over the top, then he would close with his back foot here on a settle set, and that's how he could separate, and I'll show you that in a minute. But look at his offhand punch here. He really saves himself here. He's really getting his back foot, his right foot back. He gets his left hand on the pad and on the number, and it allows him to stop that move. Okay, here's a settle set now versus a zero nose. So all I'm trying to do here is take 2 steps back to get even with my guards in an odds double bubble situation. So I'm going to settle set and sink. I'm really working on settle set and sink. So all I want him to do right now in this one-on-one is settle and sink and see how much he can firm the defender up, giving ground grudgingly. And then we stop. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I will use that to the shade at times. But most of the time in a shade situation, we do have some sort of help. Okay, this part of the tape is more for, I just want to show you responses and finishes that are required in pass protection situations. I want you to see where you have to go and how to convince. 3 years ago, the year before I got there, they were the #1 rushing team in the National Football League. I get there, and Bill becomes the head coach, and all of a sudden, we're going to throw the ball 1 billion times. Try to convince the same line that was the rushing champ to become the passing champ, and that is a chore in itself. So what I said was, how can we battle this? Well, let's be physical in our pass protection. Let's short set guys. Let's be physical. Let's respond aggressively. If they only rush 3, let's help each other out aggressively. Let's not hold back. Rich will get rid of the ball in our timing passing game, and let's be physical with our responses and our switches. So here, I wanted to show you our physical nature that we have. This is a left guard covering the inside shoulder of the tackle in a slide protection. You can see the physical nature that we want to play to stop inside moves by blitzers. And then you see the other thing, we get a finish here by the right guard. Look at his finish. He's not happy to just stay and protect. He wants to make sure that he gets some finish on the play. And then here's the right guard versus an ET stunt, really closing the gap. Check this out now. The right guard on an ET, closing the gap. He wants to make sure he's closing this gap versus this delay ET by this end. And he really does a good job of becoming physical and forcing that switch. Okay, the next thing is securing the TT stunt here at the left guard. And I'm just showing you some responses. Look at the left guard. He gets a TT. There's a 3 TT happening inside. And he's going to secure and close the gap so Rich has somewhere to check it down or has somewhere to throw it. A lot of our passes aren't thrown for more than 6-7 yards, but then they're run after the catch. So we have to be physical up front. Like I said, going back to what Paul had taught me years ago, is you got to stop the guys, you got to make the pocket, and it's got to be physical up front. So look at the left guard. He's going to make sure that there's somewhere to throw it from. The next thing here is finish versus the jumper. Watch Mo Collins, right guard. I think it's Mo. Yep, watch Mo Collins here on the right guard, 79, against a jumper. We always say work on it. We always say you got to practice it. You got to work it. So here we get a jumper. I'm going to finish the block. Finish against the jumper. Okay, here's the right guard again on a finish. Another guy trying to jump, trying to bat a ball down. So we pick up this blitz, and now we got a DB rushing in there, which he shouldn't be in there. And we got to make sure that DBs don't want to blitz in our games. So we want to be physical when they get in there. Finish the block. Okay, one more time. Coverage. Here we are covering at right guard, covering the OT. Lincoln has an inside move. He tries to become aggressive. It's a 3-step that ends up being about 5-step timing. So Lincoln's being aggressive. And so we're covering on a right call here by the center. The center helps inside. Look at the punch he has on the nose. He sets the guy for the center, and now he's covering on a late delay. He's covering for the right tackle. The next thing is response versus zone dog now on a 3 technique, and this is key because when you get zone dogs now, you have to, or any kind of zone blitzes here, you have to respond. And the response mechanism has to happen prior to and with communication of the tackle. It has to happen quickly. So look at the right guard. The guy hasn't passed him yet, but the tackle is called and helped him out with a switch or an inside or some call that helped him out to tell him to go back inside. Give assistance inside. I have the loop. Make a call and work it so they work together. Now look at the help back inside. He's going to be physical on the inside move. Boom! He helps the center. Constantly trying to punish anyone that comes inside, or at least be physical so you can have a pocket. Here's a button press by the center, one last here on the physical. Here's a button press. So we're sliding here to the right backer, and he comes and he's on a blitz. And so Barrett does a great job of stopping him in the hole. How many times do you get knocked back 2-3 yards? And in this situation, Barrett's going to use what we call a button press linebacker pickup. So he's going to butt him, press him with his hands inside, and now the press then allows him to get extension and get back away from the defender on the finish. Really allowing us to have a pocket to throw in. Okay, now the one thing, the big thing I wanted to talk about today was stunt pickup. Okay, and how we can be physical in the stunt game, because that's the first thing that they do to try to soften your protection. So if we're going to throw it and we're in a no-back set here, you're going to get a blitz or a stunt. They're not going to rush straight. So you got an ET coming here. And I just want to show you, there's Barry Sims' vertical that we just saw that we were working before, and he gets an inside move, so he's lateral and he sinks on the second step, and he gets the inside move, so he puts the brakes on, and now at this point, he has to work extension snap off. Okay, so he is going to snap off the inside move. The first thing he's thinking about on an inside move is I'm going to snap it off to the guard. The guard, on the other hand, we have to watch this on the ET, on a delay ET like we're getting, where we get a bait inside, a baited 3 technique spike, and he baits us and he's not pressing. As soon as we feel the press and we hear an inside call, our eyes and our stripe of our helmet have to go back outside. Whether the defender's standing inside of you or not, the stripe of that center, the stripe of that guard has to get his eyes outside. You can see on his stripe. Watch it slowly. The 3 technique is still inside, but he knows he's not coming, and he gets a call by the tackle that there's a guy coming inside on him, and there it is, how quickly he responds. If he waited until the 3 technique got back outside of him, he would have been too late and probably got a shoulder, and we wouldn't need a new guard. The other thing is the tackle is allowing no pick of the guard to happen here. There is no pick allowed here because of the snap off by the tackle. Watch the tackle. He sinks, he settles, he sets, and he snaps. That's a nice job on that pickup. And then here's another one, and I want you to see the guard's response again. I think that's key, although the snap off is the number one thing that has to happen. We have to protect our buddy and our inside player or their adjacent lineman's inside shoulder or outside shoulder as it respectfully works to these stunts. But understand here that as I'm looking at it, is look at the left guard. Watch his eyes. Watch his eyes and his hat. You can see by the stripe of his hat. Look how fast his eyes get outside. The defender hasn't moved a lick, but he gets an inside call. We got Langston Walker here at left tackle. He snaps it off inside with the extension, and then he sinks. And you can see him sinking there to make sure that he gets nothing, that no one gets split in between on the ET stunt. So he snaps and he sinks. Right now. Right now. So here he is. He sets, inside! Got it? Follow me? You got to talk. They got to talk. If they don't communicate, there's no way to pick up a stunt.
Aaron, can you go back to that last one?
Yes, sir.
What do you tell the guard when they make that fake TEE? Only when they fake it and that tackle goes back into the air.
When they fake TE, so he's going, yeah, I got you.
He's like he's schooling with the tackle, like he's going to run the ET, but yet he comes into the A gap and your guard's over, he starts to lead, take the snap back.
What I've found is in that situation is that you get more pressure on the fake because he's not going to rush anyway until late, right?
Right.
He's rushing late. So you don't have to have concern with him. His eyes go out to back in. It's all you can say. It's all you can tell him. And because this guy is not going to rush until late on a fake ET, so you're saying he comes in and he okey dokes back outside?
The end comes in and stays in, but the tackle is not when he's going to go, and then comes back and forth and down his face.
Well, that's fine because we're getting an inside move here. That's a $100 fine. We're getting the inside move, and on the inside snap off, it's going to throw. You saw it on the first play. Remember the first play? He snapped him off, and the guy didn't end up looping outside. If you snap him off hard enough into the 3 technique, it can cause a wall inside. And I understand the situation, and you just have to respond back inside with your eyes. But the snap off, if you can snap him off into the tackle, it's going to make the difference. And here we are with the non-adjacent ET here. So now we got 2 guys. We got a guard bubble internally here. We got a nickel front, 3 down linemen. So we got a non-adjacent. So now we require 3 guys to switch this off. So our tackle, you can see our tackle snap it to the guard, and we get one more switch, a double switch. And the thing that's important here is that the uncovered lineman's eyes have to be through the defender's ear hole and into the backer's sight. We have to see this linebacker, so he has to see the backer on the set. He has to see the backer. As he picks and switches this stunt, his eyes have to come back outside, and you can see both of their eyes. You can see Middleton's eyes going back outside, understanding that any kind of delayed dog he would have to handle. How many? Oh, you're killing me. Okay, here we go. Going to the stunts here. We got a TE now inside. Look at the guard snap off. So you can see the short set. You see his hand come up on the pad. You see the short set. You snap it off, and you switch it back inside. You snap it off. Look at the tackle sink. And now look at the tackle's left arm, the right tackle's left arm. He's using what we call a drag arm. He gets his arm inside. He feels the flow of the call. We get a switch call inside by both offensive linemen. Switch! We get it back inside. We've talked. We've snapped it off, and we got the TE picked up. Let me get a couple more pictures of it. Okay, here we go. Another RTE. I'm sorry, this is on the left. It's going back to the ET. I wanted to show you this ET here on the left. Look at the outside and then inside move here on the left tackle. An out and in move. He goes ahead, he snaps it off to the guard, and the key was that he snapped it off. The other key was that the guards start yelling quick. He start yelling that he wasn't getting rushed. So he starts yelling, he makes the call, and they're able to switch it off. They got to communicate. Okay, look at the left side again. We got it left side. We got the ET coming up again. We snap it off, and the tackle sinks, and he allows nothing to come in between them. We got the inside move again. Look at his eyes again. Look at his eyes. His eyes went outside. His hands were still inside, and he got the switch. It's a great catch by Jerry Rice.
Do you have any problem with that tackle sitting outside?
Well, he's sunk. Did you see him vertical? He verticaled, right?
Right, you're taking that first step outside.
Yeah, but his second step, as long as he sinks, he's okay. Like Langston here on the left, Langston's starting to sloop his foot. You know, he hadn't been trained long enough. He's slooping his inside foot, which almost causes us a problem. Luckily, Frank snaps off that guy long enough, and Langston has long arms and strong arms. He drag arms the 3 technique to him. You see him? Watch it. He doesn't allow his inside shoulder because of the wide 3. If the 3 has got his heel on his toe on the guard's outside foot, then he's going to drag arm on his vertical to not allow this TE to beat him. See what I'm saying there? So yeah, he can't widen. He widened with his foot, but he kept his hand involved. The snap-off technique is hitting and punch, striking, and releasing the nearest point of the defender toward your assisting lineman. So we are going to take both hands on the near point of a defender here, which happens to be his pad and his number, and strike and snap him with full extension over to your buddy. Does that make sense? See a couple more here. Look at the left guard here. The left guard, and what I tell him is this: anytime a 3 technique rushes wide, you snap him off, whether it's a stunt or not a stunt. So we practice 3 techniques rushing up the field and continue rushing, and then you have to retrace as a guard and recover, retrace and recover and refit your hands on a 3 technique that doesn't stunt. Does that make sense? On a switch that doesn't happen. So you yell switch, you're calling the switch, but the 5 is still going up the field. We just work that technique. But here we get a snap off and a switch again. We could switch through that one. Okay, here's an inside now. Let's work inside. So now I got a 2 technique, so I'm going to post at guard. I'm going to post inside. I have an aggressive set to the right anyways, which helps us out. But you can see the snap of the 3 technique. You can see him getting extension with his inside hand. He gets extension. He's snapping it inside. And look now, look how we forced this switch, because we could have easily gotten split. If he wouldn't have got his hand up quick down on this nose, he gets his hand up and forces the defender to not penetrate and allows us to switch that off inside. That's hard to do now. One more TT. Okay, here's a big bubble here. Here's a big bubble internally. And you can see there's our subtle set at center here. Stay in square as we can. Stay in it square. You can see that was the stunt we showed earlier there on the physical response. But that's a subtle set as well. It's the right tackle on a TE, or the right guard. Look at the right guard snap it off. Now he gets too mired in here. He gets too mired in. He goes ahead and he gets his chest involved. But he snaps it, and watch him, in this case, because he knows he got mired, he has to sink a little bit back inside. You never want him to sink unless he has to. At guard. Same snap off. Look at the snap off. He hands it to his buddy, snaps the near point. Look how he gets the near point, he snaps it over. He strikes it and snaps it with full extension. He doesn't bench him. And now he responds back inside. Look how he has to respond. So there's a good drill for you. Snap it, slide back inside. Snap and slide. Look at the finish. Look at the finish. Don't allow him to bat the ball. Finish on the other side. So, the vertical. He'll widen a little bit. He verticals because he can't widen. So we'll work straight back this line right here on the vertical. With the vertical, as soon as this defender, this 3 technique becomes toe to heel, toe to toe here, is the inside toe to his outside toe, he's going to drag arm. Make sense? And that allows, see how the thing that you got to be ready for, as long as the guard is aggressive with his snap off, you can defeat both the TE and the ET as long as you have extension. So the drill for the tackle is to sink and snap, and then the next time sink and accept. So you got to continue to just work that sink and snap, sink and set, sink and accept, and you got to just work it, and that set will allow you to pick up both. This is nice here by the tackle forcing this switch. So he's off his body again, you see it? He's off his body, so you get the drag arm. So he's blocking him, but he's using his inside arm to hold off the wide 3. And that allows us to stop then this stunt. And you can see Mo trying to snap this off right from the beginning. He's trying to get his hand and push the guy over to the link right away. He's trying to snap it and switch it right from the beginning. Watch the left guard's extension. See how he's got extension? And he's snapping that. See how he snapped the 3 off because he thought he was getting a 3 TE? And see how Clemens is stopping here? He snaps it off right from the beginning. So now he's ready for the TE, even though it was delayed. Now we get, watch his stripe inside. Stripe goes back outside. Here's a slide protection situation. 3-man stunt. Now you got to start encountering 3-man, which requires a double switch. So you got a switch call. I'm a right guard. I'm setting on my 3. I should be posting if I know I see the buck. I see him up on the line. I should keep my inside foot planted. They're kicking and holding their post. I like him to take an inside step. They see he's blitzing. They see he's topped in the slot. Go ahead and take your inside step. So here we go. We kick and we hold our post. We hold our post. We get the snap off inside by the right guard. And the right guard hears now, he's got a double situation here. He hears switch and he hears inside. He goes ahead and takes the pick. There's a heck of a job by Lincoln snapping it off to Mo. Here comes Mo. He slides back outside, Link does, and he picks it up. So it requires a double switch here. We switch it once inside, switch, switch again. We got a double switch going on a tear stunt, a tackle around stunt. Here's another 3-man stunt. 3-man stunt into a slide. We're sliding left. You can see us covering the inside pad. He gets the 3 spike. We cover it. We hand it. We sink on the switch. 3-man stunt. Snap it, switch it, stay aggressive. Stay aggressive, hold our pocket. Well, man is not a very deep dropper. Jerry Rice still running. Older than me. Is that it? Last one. One more 3-man. One more 3-man stunt. We got the tear. Look at the guard here. He covers, he snaps, he switches, we sink. 3-man stunt pickup. So we got to understand, here we are, we're one-on-one on the island, can't get beat inside. Don't help too much of that chip. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Thank you. Thank you.
What you teach is what you see, huh? That's